Welcome back from the breakout room, everybody, from your Connect. Would love to hear any thoughts or sharings that might have emerged from your chats about your passions, your vices, and how they show up in your lives. Did you learn something? Did you hear something interesting? Who'd like to share?
Please, can I opportunistically ask Dave to finish what he was saying, because I was totally intrigued and I think it's very valuable.
Well, I'm a 3, identify as a SX3. All of the 3 in our room were SX. And I was just posing the question at the end. In the United States, we have an infamous member of Congress who is a pathological liar, George Santos from New York. And I just posed the question, I would love to know what type he is. And then Ingrid said, being a psychopath doesn't have anything to do with what type you are. And then we appeared here.
Okay.
But the thing you were saying about getting others to deceive themselves, I've never heard anyone say that before, about the passion of deceit. And I think there's something really important in there. Can you elaborate on that piece? Sorry, Renate, I'm just like hijacking.
Oh, no, this is what it's about. We want to talk about these things. This is awesome.
Yeah, sure. So as a 3, deceit, is just kind of how I'm wired. I think I'm becoming self-aware. It's been a 20-year journey, but I think I'm becoming self-aware enough to catch it sometimes when I use it in myself. But what I find is not so much in coaching, but one of the things that I do is I'm a professor. And if someone talks to me about their career, I can get them to believe something that may not actually be true. But then they're very happy because they like what they're starting to believe. And it's an ego hit, it's a dopamine release and all of those things.
So get them to believe something positive that you're saying about their career.
Oh yeah. So someone would come to me, and I teach adults, average age is 38. And so many of them are they're all very accomplished. They've got good titles. They work for big companies, or they're entrepreneurs or venture capitalists, but often they're just frustrated. The career isn't fulfilling for them. And so then they ask for a meeting. And in the meeting, I ask them questions, and I can find some little germ of an idea or ambition or something. And often I can get them to believe that germ is something that could expand and become their future career.
Wow.
And it's very damaging. Because then I talk to them 2, 3, 4 years later, and then they feel disappointed.
Yeah.
So
wow, Dave, that's really valuable. Thanks for sharing. It's almost the projection of the deceit onto others. Yeah. It works for me, so I'll make it work for you. Yeah, thanks. Great. Any other insights or comments coming out of your check-ins?
Yeah, maybe one thing what I noticed within myself, actually, so I've shared a lot around my vice many times already, and every time I can really sense in my body how it is. So there's first this shamish thing. I'm in the shame triad, so and then kind of the relief, like, yeah, we're all in this together. Let's chat about these things. And so I really appreciated the exercise.
Great, thanks, Natasha. You know what I'm going to do? We never do this, but for the sake of this session, if you know how to rename yourself, put your Enneagram subtype and type after your name. If you hover your cursor over your webcam, you'll get 3 dots in the top right-hand corner. In the drop-down menu, it'll say rename, and you can do that, just so that when we are talking about passions, we know which type passion you're talking about. And we'll also do some type groups later on, just to distill some thinking around the passion. Anybody else want to share something that was mentioned in your check-in groups? Something that you learned? Yeah,
we
David.
we were very thankful for Bernard because none of us could remember the questions, but him being a 1, he had taken a screenshot of it and he was happy to, if we needed to, send it out to everybody. So he was grateful. We were grateful for that. I, being the 7, started, of course. Yeah, Catherine hated it because she was the 9, not wanting the tension. And Getty served us all in the 2, and by going last and refusing to go first. So there we go. So it was, I think the thing that as I hang around more is wherever we are there, wherever we go, there we are. And that was what Bernard said, is that, just utilizing the Enneagram to be aware of himself in this last season. And yeah, just there we are. So how are we there?
Great.
And I spoke, and I did a 7 thing. I spoke for everybody else, and too. So pulling back the curtain on it.
We love you, Dave. Anybody else? A thought about what? Yes, Fiona.
Well, for me, really, I can read the list of what all of the passions and vices are, but I don't use them as much as I could. And I think they can be incredibly powerful in the work that we do. So I've done, obviously, mine in my personal capacity and growth, but I'm really looking forward to learning more about what it actually looks like with all the different types. So thank you for offering this to us this afternoon.
All right, last shot. Anybody else? An insight, a comment, something that you learned, something interesting? All right. Great. Well, let's dive in. We'll do some more sharing later. So the reason I wanted to talk about passions or vices, so the words are used interchangeably. The original Enneagram language is passion, and then later the word vice was adopted in some Enneagram schools as a way of not using the original language, but we're talking about the same thing. So whether we say passion or vice, just know that it's the same thing. So many of you know that I lecture in the Enneagram for integrative Enneagram, and outside of that too. And what I'm noticing more and more, particularly in the last little while, is if I ask people in the trainings to talk about how their vice or passion shows up for them in their life, too many people who've been with the Enneagram for years and are coaching with the Enneagram are unable to really speak to that in depth about themselves. And I realized that not enough focus is perhaps being paid to this really important construct in the Enneagram, and it's really a vital underpinning of our understanding of how to work and how to get the value out of this, the map that the Enneagram is providing for us for our journeys. I see more people are arriving. So our friend Jill Figaji did a book club on this book, Character Neurosis. Claudio Naranjo's, I think, his first work, where he basically took the Enneagram as he learned it from Oscar Chazo and overlaid the modern day psychology on it. So he's really the kind of the father of bringing the Enneagram of personality as we know it to the world. And the last chapter in his book, he offers the suggestions for further work on self. And so I just brought this in to underscore the importance that it's not just me saying that we really need to be paying attention to the passion or the vice, that from the originator of the Enneagram, he is saying what we should do with the Enneagram, and there's 7 things. And the number 1 thing is self-awareness of our ruling passion. So this is his language straight from the book, seeking for the operation of one's ruling passion, and seeking also to identify the traits or attitudes linking this behavior to one's generalized way of being. So that's number 1 in his suggestion for work on self. And a lot of the suggestions that follow are in support of that. I'm just closing my curtain. The sun sets over Table Mountain in my eyes. He says, write an autobiography, and this is in service of noticing how the passion shows up. So particularly the memories of painful situations in early family life. Cultivate an attitude of an impartial observer, and study your writing in terms of the origins and development of your particular character and particular ruling passion and fixation. We'll speak lots about passion and fixation in the session. And when complete, you'll be able to better observe your machine in ordinary life, in here and now. So the autobiography is really going back and stalking your whole life to look for how has this passion or vice shown up. Undertake ongoing self-analysis, which involves the discipline of self-observation and retrospection, a chewing up of recent experiences in the light of work ideas. And he says work ideas involve recognizing negative emotions, painful states caused by the frustration of the passions. An inevitable aspect of this work is what Gurdjieff called conscious suffering, a willingness to stay with experiences as need to be observed and investigated. So even using our painful emotions as ways to trace back, because they're caused by the passion or the vice. So all of this is in support of recognizing how the passion or vice shows up. Then he speaks about the task of belly-centered awareness, maintaining throughout daily life a sense of presence at a point about 4 fingers under the navel, coupled with abdominal relaxation, relaxation of the shoulder, alignment of the body axis to gravity, and breathing awareness. So there's this somatic awareness that is a huge part of the work that we all need to be doing as well, all day, every day. He recommends Vipassana meditation also, with a particular emphasis on mindfulness of sensations and emotions. So really paying attention to our bodies, sensations, and emotions, our hearts. And then I love number 6, an increasing measure of confession in regard to the understanding thus far gained of the personality. So I know Ingrid and I have been friends for years, and our conversations, we delight in our confession to each other of how insane we are, through the lens of our, supported through the lens of our Enneagram. Yeah, so it says, not only is truth compatible with a successful life, but also shared truthfulness in certain chosen relationships can be a path in itself, by itself. And conversely, the inability or unwillingness to be genuine, at least in our must be close relationships, or chosen relationships rather, contributes to the perpetuation of our self-imprisonment in the world. So really the ability with a few chosen close people to fess up about, the grip. I always say the vice and passion has us by the short and curlies all day, every day. And it's really starting to pay attention to that. And it's amazing. The more you see it, the more you see it. Like in tiny ways, all day, every day. It's just constantly there. And that's what we need to be able to start to notice. And then an association with like-minded people interested in going further with these ideas. So our community is part of that, but he actually recommends an actual group that gets together and shares deeply. So a recommendation to share not only in general terms, but to quote specific pages of journal writing. The journal writing refers to the autobiography, with freedom to censor. And then you have to be honest if you have censored, but also to practice meditation together and a psychotherapeutic exercise that he calls free monologue. And he describes in the book what that is and how to go about doing it. So we see the thread here from Naranjo on the importance of really getting to grips with how and where the myriad ways the passion of vice show up in our lives all day, every day. And I feel in coaching individuals, the greatest value that I can offer my clients is the ability for them to be able to identify and notice when their passion is at play. Businessmen who are investing in other businesses as Enneagram 2s, and then out of the need to be so important to them, the pride of the 2 not doing sufficient due diligence and actually sinking their business ship through the passion of pride. And noticing how that pride plays a role in every business decision he's making, and how he's setting up his 50% partnerships. On paper, they're 50%, but he's doing more than 50%. So really, the awareness of the passion is supporting your clients in very real business, in their life, in their relationships, in their bottom lines, in their businesses. Enneagram 2 leaders seeing how they create dependence in their people. So this ability to highlight the passion and let your clients understand, because this thing shows up in so many different ways all the time. And how do we spot it? So just on a nice quote, just for us to highlight how it's not just about our Enneagram type, isn't just about, oh, okay, this is the type I am. So William Schaefer says, first of all, there's a big difference between knowing my type and feeling it leap into action. To know my type, I only have to learn and remember a number. I'm a 6. I know that because it was one of the high numbers on a test I took. The people who interviewed me on the 6 panel seemed the most like me, and my teacher thought it was a good fit. I can know my type without really understanding anything more. But to feel my type going into action is much more complicated. It involves looking for something called your passion, which at the beginning of the search is more or less completely unconscious. So the Enneagram passion or vice, the word passion is not passion as we understand it or we use it in English today. It's from the Latin passionem, meaning suffering or enduring. So our Enneagram passion or vice describes the form of our particular suffering. So this is just another quote just highlighting what this is. The passions and ego fixations represent the ways that spiritual qualities become contracted into ego states. There are, according to Ichazo's theory, 9 main ways that we lose our center and become distorted in our thinking, feeling, and doing, and are thus the 9 ways that we forget our connection with the divine. The passions can also be thought of as our untamed animal nature before it is transformed by contact from higher influences, awareness, and grace. So we're already starting to get a clue about what is required through the noticing and how the passions are transformed. So here they are for those who need a reminder. It's interesting that often the 9 in various Enneagram schools or through various Enneagram authors, there's different language. There's probably more than that. I know some people are calling it disengagement now, the passion, but it's all words that kind of mean the same thing, the self-forgetting sloth and acedia. For the most part, the rest of the passions are agreed upon. The Enneagram is an emerging body of knowledge. The Enneagram 3, Ichazo originally said that the passion of 3 is deceit and the fixation of 3 is vanity. And Naranja reversed that and said, no, the passion is vanity and the fixation is deceit. So I am a 3 and I'm not going to express a view on that. I find it useful to work with both because the deceit almost always is in service of the vanity and the one underpins the other. And the virtue of the 3 is also phrased as authenticity, veracity, truthfulness, honesty, and that is the opposite of deceit, really. So you can decide for yourself which of those are more useful to you. But for me, I almost, when I see one, I see the other is entangled in it at the same time. And we'll talk more about what these are. At the other end of the spectrum, the virtues of the types. So again, right action sometimes is now called engagement. Either way, it's really taking action in your own self-interest. And yeah, constancy instead of sobriety. I think for the most part, we see it as sobriety. And then this slide just maps, but we'll talk through this later on in the presentation. Our journey and understanding that what we're paying attention to is the vice or passion, and our vertical journey in the Enneagram is from passion or vice to virtue. And the lines, the horizontal journey on the lines is in support of the vertical journey. But the vertical journey is our journey of integration, of spiritual maturity, of coming home to our true essence or our true selves. So just to understand a little deeper the nature of the passion and the virtue, the virtues describe the expansive, non-dual qualities of essence. The virtues are the natural expression of the awakened heart. So what we're going to see is that it's significant that the virtues are described as being in the heart. The holy ideas represent specific non-dual perspectives of essence, and perspectives here are in the mental or the thinking center. Through the ego fixation, the person is trying to restore the balance, but from the dualistic perspective of ego, cannot. So the dualistic perspective of ego is described by our passion or vice and the fixation. The non-dual perspective of our true nature is restored as we see through the particular delusions of our type, and the delusions are the passion. So again, we're getting a clue that when we can see through the delusions of the passion and fixation, what starts to emerge is the non-dual perspective of our true nature. And that's really what the Enneagram is, just a map showing us how to see through the lies of our fixation and our passion, and reclaim our true essence. Yeah. So definition of duality, and this is from the Oxford Dictionary, the quality or condition of being dual. And we've got some similes at the bottom there: doubleness, ambivalence, polarity. So basically we're talking about, with duality, two opposites, right? An instance of opposition or contrast between two concepts or two aspects of something, a dualism. So two. That's what duality is. And so what we're going to explore today is, what is the duality? What are the dualities that we are dealing with and grappling with in experiences of our passion or our vice? Non-duality, there is no definition in the dictionary. So I scrounged a little, and essentially non-duality is derived from the Sanskrit word advaita, meaning not two. So non-separation, in other words, oneness. So duality is two, and non-duality is the two becoming one, essentially. The non-dual perspective says that all things are interconnected. You are one with everything in the universe, part of the whole, unlike duality, which means two, not one, and the world around you and other people and you. So, and there's some more detail there, but essentially that's what we're saying. There's a reference here to the yin-yang symbol of Taoism, which all the Eastern philosophies speak about, which essentially is leading the way to understanding non-dualism. So what we know is that everything exists as a set of complementary opposites. Everything in the universe, this is a law. For every night there's a day, for every winter there's a summer, for every wax there's a wane, for every ebb there's a flow. When we go to gym, in order to build a muscle, what we're actually doing when we're pumping iron is we're breaking the muscle fibers in order for them to build. So that's why our muscles hurt. So there is no build without destroy. There's no construction without destruction. So this is essentially the law of polarity as it is evident in all the ologies, all the sciences on the planet, except the man-made ones, all demonstrate the law of polarity, that everything is a set of complementary opposites. Even in geology, every construction of the Earth's surface, there's a destruction. Cosmology, galaxies collide, stars die, new ones are birthed with the same material. So it is inextricably woven into the fabric of the universe as a law of polarity. Everything can be separated into two wholly opposite parts, and that each of those still contains the potentiality of the other. And so we're going to explore this through the lens of passion. What are those two opposites that we are splitting and making dualistic instead of one, that give us the experience of the passion? Richard Rohr, for those who know him, says wisdom is defined as the ability to see both and as we're going to see, when we truly see both and, that is a moment of the virtue, because the virtue is non-dual. The virtue is an experience of non-duality, when we bring the two polarities and we see them as one. The other principle that we can derive from the law of polarity, if we're going to just simplify this for the sake of our very quick time together today, is that everything serves and disserves equally. And when we're working with the Enneagram, a deep knowledge and holding of this principle that everything serves and disserves equally is absolutely essential. None of the traits, when we speak about the Enneagram with clients, none of the traits are negative and none of them are positive. Sevens are optimistic. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Yeah. until it comes to strategy planning in executive teams, where the preponderance of Enneagram 7 thinking style, usually in Enneagram teams, means that they often make decisions based on not really looking at the potential pitfalls if they don't have enough 5 and 6 thinking style in the team. So optimism is not necessarily a positive trait. It serves and disserves equally. If we look at stinginess of the Enneagram 5, we all have stinginess in different forms. You know, some people might be stingy with money. You might be stingy with time, compliments, you know, sex, who knows? You know, we can be stingy with different things. So we've all got stinginess, and it serves and disserves equally. So, you know, we know Enneagram 2s need to learn to be more, you know, put boundaries in place and be more stingy about the time and energy they spend on everybody else. So beautiful quality. So another important factor is for us to understand, where do these concepts of vice or passion, virtue, fixation, holy idea, where do they fall in? Because our work with the Enneagram is also around balancing the centers. So we are 3-brained beings. We all have our intellectual thinking brain, our heart brain, our gut brain, or our body brain. And we need to bring balance to each center, and we need to balance the use and make sure that we're accessing the wisdom of all 3 of these centers. And as we know, the Enneagram types are allowing us to understand which of these is our go-to center and which is being repressed and not accessed. And so taking in mind these 3 centers, this is a diagram from Character and Neurosis, and this just helps us understand the vertical journey. So what we see below the dotted line is the ego state, the personality, the dualistic state. And we've got the 3 centers. So lower intellectual, lower feeling, and the instincts in our body center. So that the 3 circles at the bottom are our 3 centers, which together make are the whole of who we are. And the journey is from below the dotted line to above the dotted line. So we're going from lower intellectual, which is the passion or vice, which is the fixation, to higher intellectual, which is holy idea, lower feeling, which is passion or vice, to higher feeling, which is virtue. And then in the body center, from the instincts to pure instinct. This is from Beatrice Chestnut's The Complete Enneagram. This helps us see this more clearly. Cognitive, same thing as what he's calling intellectual. It's our head center. So what the Enneagram is helping us understand through the passion and fixation and the instincts is what our disintegrated or unintegrated ego state is in all 3 centers. And it's describing the vertical journey in terms of when we do integrate, what is available, what comes online, what does our true essence look like in each of the centers. So holy idea and virtue. So when we're talking about passion and vice today, we're talking about what sits in the heart center. And the vice to virtue, the passion or vice to virtue, that is our vertical journey in the heart center. Today, I'm not going to focus on the head center or the thinking or cognitive or intellectual center, which is fixation to holy idea. But the same principle applies. The fixation, the lower cognitive and emotional fixation and the passion are dualistic, and the higher, the true essence, is non-dual. And then I like this diagram because here, this is also from Character and Neurosis. He's basically got a circle encompassing the 3 centers, because that is us as one person. Diminished awareness, where we're bound by instinct in the bottom circle, and fully awakened awareness in our 3 centers. So I think that really highlights, and this is an important understanding for us. So let's talk about the heart center, because that's what we're talking about today. Passion or vice and virtue are in the heart center. So if we look at feelings, and we've just seen a diagram with a dotted line, true essence above, and fixated dualistic ego state below. So if we talk about feelings, above the line, we have transcendent feelings. This is the nature of the virtue. Below the line, we have emotional feelings. When we're triggered in our passion or our vice, we get we feel emotions. So transcendent feelings are synthesized. They are non-dual. This is the nature of the virtue. Emotional feelings are polarized or dualistic, and we're going to outline this for you. So what does polarized or dualistic feelings mean? It means I'm happy or I'm sad. I experience joy or sorrow, like or dislike, infatuation and resentment, elation, depression, attraction, repulsion. I'm relaxed, I'm anxious, I feel pleasure or pain. So here, that is dualistic emotions. So I feel this way or I feel that way. And we can see that if my value as a 3 of success is supported, I feel happy. And if my value of success is thwarted, then I'm on the other side, right? And so there's this movement in the dualistic thing of emotions. So here my values are supported, here my values are challenged. And so the Enneagram is such a beautiful way for us to understand what our values are. Our Enneagram types are describing what we value. And when those values are supported, so for as a 9, if we've got harmony, I'm going to feel the left-hand side emotions, which are activate parasympathetic nervous system. The emotions on the right-hand side activate the sympathetic nervous system. On the left, we've got rest and digest. On the right, we've got fight or flight. On the left, we're conscious of positive and unconscious of the negative. So I've got harmony and peace as a 9. That's great. I'm unconscious of the potential negative in having harmony and peace, and that we're not really addressing issues. We're sweeping things under the carpet. So we'll call those positive emotions. On the right-hand side, now I'm conscious of the negative because now there's conflict, and I'm unconscious of the positive. I don't like this. I feel sad. I feel resentful because now there's conflict as a 9. And I'm not aware of the positive in this conflict. And that actually my relationship, just like building the muscle by pumping iron, I'm breaking the fibers. So by entering into this conflict, we're actually strengthening our relationship and leading to a more authentic peace, for example. And we'll call those the negative emotions. So right here, we're starting to understand the dualistic nature in the heart center of the passions and vices, right? So what is the passion of anger for the 1, right? It's based on the dualistic nature of good, bad, right, wrong, perfect, imperfect. And when things are good and perfect and ethical and right, I'm going to feel this way in my heart. And when things are not, I'm going to feel angry. I'm going to feel angry because there's so much that's wrong and bad in the world. So the passions are leading us to feel these kinds of emotional states and are actually describing them. When we see both sides simultaneously, when we're conscious of the positive and conscious of the negative simultaneously. So as a 2, I'm being rejected. And in that moment, I can see how it hurts, the rejection and the negative of it, but I can immediately see the positive of that at the same time. Then we have a synchronicity and synthesis of both opposites. When you see both sides, you discover a hidden order, which is the holy idea. The holy ideas all describe this absolute hidden order in the universe, that everything is according to a holy plan. Everything is unfolding magnificently and perfectly without our intervention. And when we're up here in transcendent feelings and we're conscious of both simultaneously, our feelings are not polarized. Then we have an experience of the virtue. So as a 1, I'm going to move from anger because everything's all right and wrong and good and bad. And when I start to be able to perceive the perfection in everything, I'm going to experience serenity. The virtues are descriptions of non-polarized emotional states. That's why they are transcendent states. And you know, you've all had an experience of your virtue in your life. You have them for a moment where there's what you're grappling with just goes away and you just see the truth and you feel that state, which is true gratitude, also known as grace. You have a moment of profound grace. When you're supported and given what you want, you say thank you. That's when you're conscious of the positives. When you're challenged and people take away what you want, then you go screw you instead of thank you. So where are we? Maximum growth occurs at the border of challenge and support, chaos and order. If our values are supported, I'm at the bottom left again, people give you what you want, that can create juvenile dependence. When our values are challenged, that can create precocious independence. And if you put them together, you become present. So a perfectly equilibrated mind, when you see the balance, right? That moment is a moment of love and gratitude when you see the truth. There's an opening in the chest. It's a moment of inspiration, or you'll get a tear in your eye, chills up the spine. Your body responds to that feeling. Enthusiasm, not woohoo enthusiasm, true enthusiasm. You're poised and you're in a present state of mind. So I wish we had time today to speak about, I'd love to hear everybody's experiences of when you've experienced these moments, because those are moments of experiencing our virtue. Oscar Charles, the man who interpreted and brought forward the Enneagram in its modern form, proposed an Enneagram of holy ideas and an Enneagram of virtues. Simply put, the holy idea of each type is the mental clarity of the true self that emerges when the mind is at rest. The mind is at rest when it's not grappling with the two polarities. While the virtue of each type is the emotional objectivity of the true self that comes forward in a heart at peace. Together, our holy idea and virtue express who we were always created to be. So I've added the fixations underneath the passions here, and I think it just helps us see how easy it is to see the link between these. So this is the lower cognitive in the fixation, which is in blue, and the lower emotional in the heart center, which is the passion, in black. And you can almost see how the anger leads to resentment, how flattery supports the pride, how vanity and deceit are linked together, how envy leads to melancholy, how avarice causes people to be stingy, how fear can lead to cowardice, how the gluttony leads to the planning and anticipation fixation, and the lust, which is a need for intensity, can lead to vengeance, and the sloth, self-forgetting acedia, can lead to indolence. So the link there is clear. So again, this is our journey from passion or vice to virtue that's described for us in the heart center by the Enneagram. Very important for us to be conscious is that the work is not to strive to achieve a state of the virtue as a goal. So that's not it. We don't go, I'm going to try and be serene as a one. I'm going to aim for equanimity all day, every day. Yeah. We don't set a goal. It's not something we strive for. It's not something we can try and do or try and be. That's not how it works. We also never get to the state of, I'm so enlightened, I'm in my virtue all day, every day, right? Doesn't work like that. That's not going to happen. We will have moments, just moments of the experience of that virtue. And as we become more skilled at noticing the vice or passion and the dualistic nature of it, and able to bring those polarities together so that we can see both sides, which is the truth, right? The truth sets us free. And what happens is, as we grow and we get more skilled at doing this, we start to have moments of the virtue at increasing frequency. So you'll have virtue, 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 increasing frequencies, because we start to live closer to it. We don't move so far away. So these massive emotional reactions in the heart center take us far away from the center, the virtues in the center. So the more hugely we are triggered in our ego state of passion or vice, the further we move from the center state of love and gratitude and awe and inspiration and truth. And so as we see through the fixation and the passion and the delusions of it, we will be less triggered and emotionally live closer and closer to the center and not sway that far away from the center. And so we experience those centered moments of inspiration, love, gratitude, and the description of your particular virtue. Serenity if you're a 1, humility as a 2, and truthfulness, veracity, authenticity as a 3, equanimity as a 4, non-attachment as a 5, courage as the 6, sobriety as the 7, innocence of the 8, and the right action of the 9. Those become more available to us, and we start to just experience moments of those with increasing frequencies. We will not arrive in the place of our virtue. And if you think you have, that's probably the first sign that you haven't.
There's a concept that I learned from Tom Condon that I found really helpful that links to your thing of we're not kind of striving for the virtue using our superego or the inner critic. What he speaks about is as we do the work that you're talking about, we gain what he calls unconscious freedom. So in that being less triggered, there's a foundation of unconscious freedom where we don't have to sit and grapple and wrestle with polarities. There's a natural narrowing of that spectrum of reactivity. I don't know if that's making sense, but I just love that concept of unconscious freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. But and what I like about the use of the word freedom is it speaks to the shackles of the vice and passion, because that's really, we are imprisoned by them. Yeah. Yeah, the more we see through it, the easier, it does become easier, just because it becomes easier to see, and the more we're able to test it. As a 3, I know my work is to show up warts and all. How else will I discover that I'm worthy of love with all my warts? So I force myself to tell the people close to me the truth, and I feel certain that certain things, if I tell them, they will leave my life on the spot forever. They will never want to be associated or speak to me again. That's the fear of the 3. They're things that I just can't show. And then I force myself to share anyway. And then I go, oh, you're still here. You haven't departed, So, Natasha, were you going to say something?
In fact, Renata, when we have our confession sessions, I like you more every time.
Who would have thought? Natasha, were you going to say something? Oh, I thought I saw you unmute. Yeah. It is liberating. Part of the deceit of the 3 is injecting other people's values, and that becomes your goals and part of your self-image. And I'm 56 now, but at age 52, it took me that long. I just woke up to the fact that all the stuff that I thought I wanted to be and do in my life, I actually didn't want to be or do any of that. And it was the most liberating thing. It was like, actually, none of that matters. And then what I thought I could never share because it felt like so shameful, I'm this businesswoman, was that all I ever really wanted to do was be a housewife. I just want to be a homemaker, and I'm a self-preservation 3. So that domesticity of the 3, I just want to be a superstar at cooking and making a nice home and growing my own vegetables and looking after the family, and it's how could I tell people that all I really want to do is be the most fabulous housewife and make a wonderful home and wonderful food and take care of a family. So yeah, and it takes time to see that. All right. So we're going to go into breakouts in a little while. And I'll create 9 breakout rooms. I don't know if we have representation from all 9 types. So if I see anybody by themselves in a group, I will pull you into another group. And I thought the best way for us to learn is to consult with our people in our community. and discuss some of the dualities you grapple with as your type. So consider perhaps a time when you had a strong emotional reaction, and what was the duality in that situation. So we want to hear feedback on that. So let's have a quick look at possibilities, and I'm really would love for people of each type to offer some views on this. So I think if we start with Enneagram 1, it's quite easy to see the polarity that ones are dealing with: perfection versus imperfection, right, wrong, good, bad, ethical, unethical, those kinds of dualities or polarities. And it's the sense that it's one way or the other. It's either good or it's bad, it's right or it's wrong, that gives rise to the anger. So what would be helpful is to hear from ones perhaps some specific situations or examples of how anger has arisen as a result of a particular duality that you were grappling with. For 2s, what are we grappling with there? Perhaps being selfish versus selfless, giving and receiving, being needed or not needed, rejection versus acceptance. Feel free to shout out if we've got 2s in the house, but otherwise we'll hear after the breakout rooms, and how that gives rise to pride. For the 3s, success and failure, looking good or not looking good, being perceived as being capable or not, looking at efficiency versus inefficiency, I guess. For 4s, we're looking at being unique and ordinary. What else are we looking at, 4s? We're looking at other people having and us not having, perhaps. We're looking at being superior or inferior. And all of that gives rise to the suffering of the envy. For 5s, what are we grappling with in 5? Understanding versus not understanding. Holding on to our resources versus being free and open with them. Having sufficient resources or not. We got 5s in the room. You need to tell us. 6s, what are we looking at? Security, insecurity, certainty, uncertainty. Those kinds of things. 7s, what are we looking at? Pleasure and pain. What other, you're a 7, what are we dealing with in gluttony? What are the polarities that 7s are grappling with? Freedom, limitation.
It's the kind of deprivation versus satisfaction.
Yeah, freedom, limitation. Yeah. And then the 8, the lust, need for intensity. It's strength versus weakness, vulnerability, versus what's the opposite of vulnerability? I suppose being strong and in control versus not in control, intensity versus not intensity, I guess. So we'd love for, we're going to go into breakout rooms and have a chat, and I want to get feedback from the type groups around, how do you see the polarity at play in your passion or vice, and how that gives rise to that particular passion, or how the passion causes the emotional duality. Does that make sense? So I'm going to leave this up on the screen for a moment. So you're going to go into type groups. I'm going to set those up very quickly while you give some thought to what you're going to talk about. So I'm going to have 9 rooms, and you're going to choose the room number that corresponds with your Enneagram type. And we'll go in for 18 minutes. And look forward to hearing some feedback on the other side. So if you find yourself alone in a room, I will move you, just stay in the room, and I will move you to a room where there are more people if we've only got one person in a room. So is everybody clear on what you're going to be doing? You're going to be talking about your passion. Try and land these concepts for us in a real life example, something that you've experienced. Think perhaps of a time when you've been particularly triggered or upset or angry or fearful, strong emotional reaction. and what was the duality at play? Is everybody clear on the instruction? Okay, so I'm going to open the rooms, and you need to select the room type that corresponds with your Enneagram type, and I'll see you back in 18 minutes. And please elect a spokesperson for your group to give us some feedback, a summary of what you've discussed and discovered. Can't wait to hear. We're going into breakout in 3, 2, 1. So you need to, if the screen hasn't popped up, you need to go into breakout rooms and find the breakout. All right, so we have all 9 types in the room. Are we still waiting for a few to come back from the breakout? Fantastic. Okay, so we've got half an hour to go, and we've got 9 types to get through. So it's about 2 minutes feedback per type. 2 or 3 minutes per type. So we want to hear your story, be powerful, but be succinct. So let's start with 8, and in the action center, we've got, where's Beverly? Where's that? Oh, there you are.
Yes, I wasn't expecting to start with 8, so I'm happy to quickly share. Hi, everyone. So I was sharing my story of my need for control versus not control. And then through the experience that I had, which was quite an emotional, like through a family experience of death and illness, was my need for needing to have information which would help me feel like I was a little in control. And so when I didn't have that, just feeling very much not in control, not sure that my best self came out, whether I had the control or not, because there was this ongoing duality, as you mentioned, Renate, that I would try to bring into a wholeness and be accepting of it. But anyway, is there anything else you wanted me to share on that, Renate?
So without mentioning the details, I think what Beverly shared, because I was in that room with just the people that we just got 1 8 in the room. It was interesting because Beverly was probably dealing with another 8. And as a result of them trying to both control a situation, and this is a close family member, they are no longer in relationship. So, you know, just how powerful that need for our passion or vice to prevail. That, you know, if somebody thwarts our intention to have our passions needs met, it can be the end of the relationship. So yeah, thank you because that story really highlights just how powerful this passion is. Like, it's so important to us. Thank you. Sure. All right, we have a bunch of 9s. Who's giving us feedback from the 9 room?
And you can. Raymond, I think, passed out on the, no, not passed out.
Oh,
he's lying on the
Raymond,
roof.
okay, he's kind of here, kind of not here, so I'll be here. So, and this is like so 9, you know, I really wanted to report out, but I made sure a 9 would say who will report out, not offer up that they'll report out. So we had a hard time getting started because everybody wants to go second as a 9. So then I'm just kind of having fun and joking here with my stuff. But what we did talk about was when we found our power, that somebody felt like they were speaking authentically or saying what they needed to say, and that or say what's on their mind. And there's a challenge to moderate anger. You know, I do 2 really well. You know, I'm passive aggressive. I do that really well. And Raymond spoke to rage is, you know, something he can do a 9.5 really well. And the polarity in both of those is that, and I think this is true for all types, is that we're in that range. It's righteous. We feel right. You know, I'm just like so damn right when I'm passive aggressive, and you know, in those few moments when I'm really raging, you know, damn it, I'm right then too. You know, so it is that means somebody's really wrong, and the polarities are at their extremes, you know. So to me, that's kind of it. The other thing I'd offer up is procrastination is how 9s might describe the disengagement and avoidance of doing that. It can feel like wanting to be right or wanting to please, or you know, just plain avoiding or getting busy with something else because to avoid the Truth would be the right word here. Yeah.
Yeah, procrastination, disengagement, just zoning out, head in the sand. Yeah, but Ken, what the polarity, is it around like not wanting to be controlled, but not wanting to control at the same time? Like, what is causing the rage or the anger or the passive aggression?
I hadn't thought about it like that, but I could. I'm gonna let Raymond or somebody else speak to that.
Ray?
And I
Ray?
know that you'll be succinct. Yeah.
Yeah, Ray?
Yeah.
I suppose it's kind of varied, but it's kind of connected, I think, to because this thing around. Can you hear me?
Ray, your sound's not great.
It's,
Maybe you should put the camera off and let's see if we can hear you, even though we want to see your beautiful face.
Stop it. So there we go. Thank you for that. No, it's something. It's like the rage when it gets kind of activated is that it's like we're not getting what we want. So it's like kind of there's the polarity between being over accommodating to get what we want, and then the rage of not getting what we want, and then really being kind of, and it just releases that kind of blind rage. And what I thought about today was quite interesting for me anyway, was that the way we deprive people of our presence. So so both Catherine and I were talking about having bad customer service and then raging and then saying, okay, we'll never come back here again. Even if it means cutting the nose, cutting to spite ourselves.
Yes.
So it's that. Anyways, I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah. It also feels like that polarity between I know what I want, but I'm not able to act to ensure that I get what I want. So then I just get cross and withdraw. Yeah, so it's that right action versus the sloth, where I don't know what I want and I don't go and get what I want. But when I don't get it, then I get cross. But I'm not doing anything about getting it, except then reacting when I don't, maybe.
Beautiful, yes.
Oh, that paints a great picture. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, nines. Let's go to ones. Fiona and anybody else?
Bernard, yeah, it's just amazing what an open door can do to a one. It was absolutely triggering. I mean, the conversation was around an open cupboard door and an open fridge door, and how the anger, resentment, criticism just comes, just surfaces. But one of the things that really came out strongly for me was that the anger, the criticism, the resentment, the closer it is to home, the more difficult it is. Versus out there, it's easier to manage. Versus when it's from a loved one or from a family member or from someone in your close circle of friends, that the criticism, the resentment, the anger just comes up so much more. And getting to a place of serenity, the holy, more difficult. Something out of my control, much easier to manage. I think Fiona was my fellow one. I'm not sure if she's got anything else to add on to that. Fiona.
Fiona?
Thanks, Bernard. I think the aspect of control was quite a big one. And as you develop, it's easier to let go of something that you have no control over, for me, certainly, than it is to let go of something that I might still have influence over, like the fridge door that gets left open in the middle of load shedding. If I have that conversation again, is something going to get better? Or do I just let it go? Whereas load shedding is the example Bernard used. You can do nothing about it. So just accept it, be serene about it, and make a plan to move forward from there. And I think it also was around expectations. If you have no expectations, you'll never be disappointed. But that's not an easy place to come from. I think as a one, when you want things, you want the world to be perfect and you want to fix it. So it's learning what battles do I take on, and where do I learn to just accept and let go of the resentment as well. So I think, and I'm not sure if we really understood the whole, where does the duality fit in there? Is it when you get into an emotional space of anger and resentment, and you're able to then move up to the top where there's non-duality of being able to see, oh wow, that's how I'm behaving, that's how I'm behaving. But it did, we had a good conversation. I think we both learned a lot around what it's like to be a one, but we may not have fully got the topic right, which is very one anyway. It's like, did I get it right? But it was very interesting. So yeah, thank you. I don't know, Renate, have you got anything with your expertise that you can add to that?
I don't have expertise. I'm here to learn from you, but it feels like that thing about, it's right or wrong, it's good or bad. I mean, we don't leave cupboard doors open, but what I find curious is how the ones seem to attract people into their lives who have the capacity to leave fridge doors and cupboard doors open, because, you get your teachers. Like, I've never lived with anybody who leaves cupboard doors and fridge doors open. But so there's, but if it's not a cupboard door or a fridge door, it's going to be something else. There's always going to be something, for ones, it's like, you left the dishwashing liquid on top of the sink. Like, how difficult can it be just to put it back in the cupboard afterwards? It just looks untidy, like, look at the scatter cushions on the couches. So, I mean, it could be anything. There's always a trigger, because things are never perfectly orderly. So I think it's that, that right, wrong, tidy, untidy, perfection versus imperfection, I guess. And of course, who else but human beings, our beloveds, are going to bring that stuff into our space, give us an experience of anger. Yeah.
And so just a quick question. I'm assuming that duality is when you get stuck in that.
Well, it's the concept that you should do this and not that. The good and the bad, the right and the wrong, that leads to the anger. That's what we're exploring for now.
Okay. Yeah, then that does make sense. Absolutely.
Instead of, I mean, isn't it just beautiful that I live with somebody who's such a free spirit, the opposite of me, so unstructured, that they could just like open the fridge, take something and just wander off. Like, what a beautiful thing that somebody should be that, free and easy.
Yeah. Well, my husband is a 7, and the one thing he doesn't like is the bed being unmade. So I never have to make the bed because he. But to attract that person in.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. All right. Let's try Enneagram 2s. Tell us about you.
We had a lovely chat. It's always fun to talk to a fellow 2. We talked a lot about giving and receiving and being aware of our own needs versus others' needs, independence versus codependence, and how those might play out. The thing that I'm really reflecting on, it was sort of the very end of our conversation, which I think gets to the polarity, but we didn't, like, we just were hitting at the end. Getty asked a wonderful question, which is, and by the way, notice all the flattery here, the wonderful question of, like, how are you going into your 4 and 8? And what I have found really kind of interesting is we both were really playing with our 8 and talking about, like, when in our coaching, how that tough love and challenging while holding the love has really been, holding those 2 pieces has been very effective for us. But we like the boundary of coaching because it gives us the permission to hold both of those things. And that maybe outside of that container of coaching, it becomes a little harder for us to hold those 2 things at the same time. And then the thing that really was intriguing at the end is both of us had a reaction to the 4 of, oh, that feels self-indulgent, which of course is that, like, rejection of our perceived selfishness.
Yes. So that's self-indulgent versus being selfish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm not going to speak for Getty. I was equating the 2, self-indulgent with selfish.
Yes. Yes. So self-indulgent versus selfless.
Selfless.
Other indulgence versus self-indulgence.
As opposed to looking at it like, oh, that's self-care and the authenticity and the connection to self. Yeah. And I can see us. I'm going to speak for you, Getty. So push back. Holding that comfort with the self-aware, the self-awareness, we're still perceiving that as like, ugh.
And we can see the pride in that I don't indulge myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say more, guests.
Also the thing around the pride represented by pleasing, by fawning.
Yes.
And on the other hand, if one were doing the work, one could represent really humility and being connected and authentic. So really a difference between pleasing and fawning and connected and authentic.
Great. Thanks, Tooz. All right, Dave Logan, tell us about polarity and the advice of the 3.
Well, and Renate, you're also a 3, so please jump in here. We well, so what I talked about is a specific issue where to me I'm not sure duality is the word that I would use, but then Renate, I come out of the Kent Wilber tradition where duality and non-duality are sort of steps up that ladder, that integral ladder. But for me, if I'm working on something, especially a big project, there's like a ping pong between, I'm pointing over here because I've got your screenshot up, happy that I made a discovery, and then sad because it's going to be a lot of work, and then, elation, it got to something, and then, but it's like the ping pong. But where I think the deception comes in, and this is probably true with all the types to some extent, but probably more so with the 3s, I tend to recast failure as success just instantly. And so that deprives 3s, or me, of the opportunity to really learn and grow. And so then how it feels, because deception ultimately starts with yourself, is it's on the left side. Like I think 3s live a lot over on the left side, regardless of what the actual facts might be. And then for me to move up into the non-dual place, I get there through meditation, I get there through journal writing, conversations with my spouse, who's the last person who talked, that was Hart. And so you just imagine what it's like when we go to dinner and drink martinis.
Yeah.
Renate, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just think it takes a measure of deceit to remain on the left-hand side, if you're talking about the left-hand side being the positive emotions. Yeah. So, I mean, because that's not possible to only live there. So all the sadness and the horrible feelings that come with failure and inefficiency and not looking good get smudged over so that, I can deceive myself that it's actually not a failure or it's not inefficient, so it's the very act of staying on the left-hand side is an act of deceit, because I'm not sitting with the authenticity of the failure and the sadness and the frustration and all the other stuff.
Well, and if I could just add one more thing, part of, I think, what comes out both for self and others is there's the deceit is to think that something is not going to be as hard as it actually will. So
yes.
Like I am doing a startup right now, in addition to being a professor and author and things like that. And that's just really hard. From tax stuff to, the list is like endless. And but when my business partner and I, who's also a 3, started the company, it's like, hey, this is going to be super easy, super fun. It's not. Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Dave.
All right, we have 4s in the room. Let's hear 4s.
As you can imagine, there was a lot of intensity in the room, so I'll be very dry now and just point out the dualities we found. So there was this duality between fitting in versus non-fitting in, being fitting in as a strong family value, and when the family is showing that in some way, that how it can be a real trigger. So fitting in versus not fitting in. And then there was this sharing around the avoidance of 4 being despair. On the one side, thinking that you are really open and honest. And actually, the duality with carrying on and not really honoring the despair going on. So just like, yeah, talking a lot and stuff like that. Then the duality between the ordinary corporate work versus the artistic special work. While you actually want to do the corporate work, you want to do it badly, and still it's not special enough or something.
Yes.
And then the not speaking. So again, something around belonging and fitting in, sensing that you actually care about the people around you and stuff, but not speak at parties because you don't fit in, you don't feel like fitting in, and not wanting to work with that, so that you work for that to happen. Don't want to do anything for yourself to fit in. And then the last one, oh no, sorry, there was one more. So let me oh yeah, so at one side, really admiring people with a strong work ethic, and on the other side, gossiping about that same kind of person, and really almost like wanting to tear them down and be really nasty about that. And then one thing around inferiority versus superiority, someone who is really making fun and like talking stupid things and giggling and stuff, and then be like, that's so immediately feel this shift of I'm better because I'm not doing that kind of stuff, while you actually want to do it. And so yeah, so there was a lot of, we were 5, I guess, so a lot of intensity and a lot of examples. And yeah,
beautiful. Wow, so grateful for that. Thank you. Michael, tell us about 5.
Started off with knowing, not knowing, and how, and that certainly in the past it's been something that I've really sort of been affixed to. I've got to find out how that works, but not being very bothered about anybody else, whether they knew something or not. I just wanted to know. But over the years, it's I'm more relaxed about that, and it's a bind for 5s. I know everything, yet I've got to relax. I've got to not know to learn. So it's just there's a duality for you. I'm going to know everything, but I've got to be dumb and open to learn anything. It's quite a challenge, I think.
Beautiful. So what a lovely illustration of attachment, or the avarice, which is holding on. So I'm very attached to having the right answer, versus wisdom actually comes from letting go of that one right answer and being open to the infinite wisdom and the infinite possibilities that there, that isn't. Michael gave us this wonderful metaphor of the island of conclusion. So I reached the island of conclusion. And so there's that avarice and attachment. I'm holding on to that conclusion. And actually, then you find out later that there's more to it, and there are other answers. And so relinquishing, and the non-attachment is, I'm not attached to that island of conclusion anymore. And that's actually where the deep wisdom.
And it's very difficult to get off that island once it's set. So I'm trying to get that balance between not knowing, but being okay with that. Because I can get to know more.
Yes, lovely.
Bonus.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Oh, I wish we had more time. 6s. Who's sharing? Steve.
Xanthi, would you like to say anything?
I'll just start quickly by saying we were just 2 of us, so we felt really safe in our little bubble. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, it was actually fun to share and chat to a fellow 6 about our fears and And yeah, we actually understood each other with regards to fear versus what's the word I'm looking for? I still can't find the word, but basically independence and trusting yourself and knowing, feeling that you know enough and you're strong enough and you are enough at the end of the day. Versus hiding in loyalty, hiding behind people when you're loyal to a group and you have little safety net. Yeah, we spoke about certainty versus uncertainty, and what Steve mentioned to me, which I actually loved, I never thought about it before, is that with our anxiety and our constant questioning and our constant need to know every detail about everything, we're actually creating anxiety in other people, which is something I've never even thought about. And I love that. It's something I think it's something I'm really going to take notice of now. Yes, and being able to self-trust and because that's one of the bigger ones. Steve, I don't know, anything else you wanted to add there?
Yeah, all of that. Yeah, that's beautiful. And also the having the faith to throw the textbook away and to walk the walk and reflect and develop insights and embody it to a degree where we trust ourselves and have faith in ourselves and speak from our own voice, our own independent authority. Find our own authority, as Auntie said, our independence. Separate from needing to be part of the group or needing that hand holding.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sevens. Tell us. David.
And listening to this, the quote that came to my mind was what my wife says about me, and that is, David's not happy unless he's a little unhappy. So it's the gluttony, it's the and I said in the introductions, my theme song is "You Two Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For." And Ingrid, and I were there, but also just the real differences between the social or the SP and the SX. The SP, my gluttony is very physical, very tangible, stuff, nice stuff, more stuff, better stuff. And where Ingrid is sharing that in SX intensity of experience, relationship of yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Anything else from the sevens?
Ingrid has forgotten more than I've ever learned, so there's something there. She's put some great stuff in the chat too.
Yeah, we spoke quite a bit about the difference in gluttony between the different subtypes and what they're after, and how the gluttony expresses itself in those 3 areas of life. And it's just so different that just kind of amplified my sense of how important it is to work with the passion in the subtype.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, we're done. We started with 8. Okay, and it's 6 o'clock. How about that? On the dot. Thank you all. What a joy, and how wonderful to learn from each other about this important topic. So I'll send out the link for the recording, and yeah, love you madly. Thanks for being part of the community. Thanks, Ing, for being my partner, and look forward to
before you close, I've put some resources in the chat. I'm hoping you can download them. There's a bee chestnut booklet on the 27 subtypes and some slides I made on the vices and virtues. So I don't know whether those will come up if you send the chat with the recording, or if you sent the chat as a file or something.
Okay, great. So I'll download the chat, but for those who are in the room, you can download the resources, copy them.
The chestnut one is pretty cool because like the main heading of each section on each type is the vice, and then it speaks about how it comes in through the subtype.
Yeah.
Then there's another Chris Hewitt's thing that I just put in. I don't know whether it shows up a picture where he divides the passions into different aspects of the passion, that it's got a carnal dimension, it's got an emotional ache, and there's a mental restlessness as well, which is quite helpful to know about.
Yeah. Not sure why I'm not able to save the chat, but I'll figure that out. So we don't have another session for this year. This is our final session. We've got speakers lined up from January to May next year. Some interesting topics. We've got a summary of the keys to the Enneagram, A.H.L. Mars's book by Jill in January. We've got Sex in the Enneagram by Frederick Cohen in February. In March, what have we got? We've got Sterling on the narcissism and the Enneagram. He's written a book on that. And then in April, we have Don Hudson speaking about neuroscience and the Enneagram. So some interesting sessions. And
then Kiki, huh?
And then Kiki, yes.
Cici,
is that how you say it? Okay, yes. In May, probably. Yeah. So thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for
I'm also running additional stuff, some Dialogos sessions, which are Dialogos is how conversation transforms us. So some Thursday nights I'm running some of those. So I'll send out invitations to this group for those as well if you aren't getting enough Enneagram learning.
Right.
Thanks, Renate.
Wishing you all a blessed festive season and holidays. Love you and see you next year.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Renate. Thank you.
Thank you.